In Ecuador, several explosions were registered in the center of Quito. According to the police, it was a car bomb attack. In Haiti, police authorities started the interrogatory of the 18 Colombian suspects arrested more than 2 years ago, accused of taking part in the assassination of the president Jovenel Moise. In South Africa, more than 70 people died after a fire in a building in downtown Johannesburg. Hello from the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, in these RG News. Brazil's Supreme Federal Court will resume the appeal trial that discusses the application of the so-called temporary framework that affects rights and restricts the marking of indigenous lands. The court will be analyzing the sentence that will define the future of the indigenous peoples, which establishes that the natives have the right to possessions traditionally occupied by them. In this sense, if this reform is approved, the native peoples will only be able to reclaim the areas occupied up to that date. According to the National Council of Justice, there are 226 cases suspended in the lower courts of the judicial branch, awaiting a decision on the matter. And the thesis of the temporal framework seeks to prevent the demarcation of indigenous lands, which is a procedure that declares a tenure of the land they inhabit as a right of the original peoples. In this sense, indigenous people are mobilizing against the legal proposal of the temporal type. They demand the reality of their history and culture while denouncing the demarcation of patrimonies, in addition to the violation of economic projects.
There are senators from the southern regions saying that marking off indigenous lands in Brazil affects the economy. This is a lie. It does affect the environment not to mark them off. It affects climate change, it affects global warming, and it affects all future generations of the world.
There's only one planet and only one Mother Earth, because it is on her that we are producing, and she's also giving us. Because she produces, she gives water, she gives fruit, and she gives air. We don't want her to die, because if she dies, we will die too. But we will not die, because we will live to fight against that. Come on, people, no to the time frame. Let's get together and defend our home. We must not change our land because of the time frame and the crimes that are being uploaded in the Senate. They want to implement those crimes in our lands, and that will not happen because we are going to fight. The land is life.
And also in Ecuador, several explosions were registered in the center of Quito on Wednesday night. According to the police, it was a car bomb attack. The Ecuadorian National Police initially said that it was a vehicle fire. However, General Pablo Ramirez later said that the incident turned out to be a presumed attack because of the explosive elements it contained. In this regard, a car was set on fire and at least 4 shots were heard in a commercial area of the capital. 6 people, among them 4 Ecuadorians and a Colombian, were arrested for their alleged connection with the explosion of the vehicle containing 2 gas cylinders, a slow fuse, and apparently dynamite sticks. The event caused no casualties. In Guatemala, legislative authorities disowned deputies of the Semilla movement, party of President-elect Bernardo Arévalo. The legislature recognized them as an independent group. Parliament's board of directors determined that the current 5 lawmakers of the Semilla, including the president-elect himself, will no longer be a legislative bloc in the Congress of the Republic. The decision comes amid the start of a criminal investigation into alleged irregularities in the party's formation process in 2017. In this respect, spokespersons for the party denounced that the action is carried out without any basis. Relatives of victims of missing people rallied in Mexico City and Bogotá on Wednesday, marking the UN's International Day of Victims of Forced Disappearances. According to the Colombian Truth Commission, the almost 5-decade conflict between the government, the guerrilla groups, paramilitaries, and the organized crime left an estimated 210,000 victims. On the other hand, Mexico has 2 distinct episodes that have left thousands of disappeared. First, a conflict between the government government and the guerrilla organizations between 1965 and 1990, a period in which the Mexican Human Rights Commission recorded a total of 532 victims. Another distinct period marked by a militarized response to combat organized crime since 2006 left, on the other hand, an estimated 200,000 victims.
For us, this day is to commemorate the victims. We consider that is a space that we cannot allow to go to oblivion. We remember these victimizing events that Colombia has experienced so that they never happen again.
I wish to invite you not to lose hope. I wish to invite you to continue with the demonstrations of solidarity, but above all, on the call to action and this commitment and conviction that we can all participate in the search.
In this context, in Colombia, the former Army commander Mario Montoya has been charged by the Special Jurisdiction for Peace, the JEP, as the perpetrator of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed between 2002 and 2003. The GEP analyzed official documents such as decrees, regulations, and the government's security policies, their presentation in official speeches of the President of the Republic, as well as the Patriot Plan. In the early 2000s, the Colombian state outlined a policy to achieve a military victory over the guerrilla threat. This included an injection of budget, an increase in manpower, and the strengthening of career conditions and benefits for military personnel.
The GEP tribunal charged General Mario Montoya Uribe as a perpetrator of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The decision adopted by the Truth and Responsibility Recognition Chamber against the former commander of the National Army stems from 130 murders and forced disappearances committed when the officer was commander of the 4th Brigade based in Medellin between 2002 and 2003.
In Haiti on Wednesday, police authorities started the interrogatory of the 18 Colombian suspects arrested more than 2 years ago and accused of being part of a mercenary squad that assassinated President Moise. 2 suspects were transported from Haiti's main penitentiary center in downtown Port-au-Prince to a government office in nearby Pétionville for questioning by Judge Walter Vesser-Voltaire. According to Magistrate Bernard Senville told, the Colombian ex-soldiers had refused to testify until now. The 18 Colombians are among more than 40 suspects, including elite Haitian police officers who were arrested in Haiti after Moise was shot and killed in July 2021 at his private residence. And after Venezuelan oil prices fell, a group of friends left noisy and crowded Caracas for bare plainlands in Yaracuy to raise cattle under the premise that Venezuela has a future. Since that moment, they turned an abandoned land into green crop fields and became self-reliant while also helping others. In this new episode of the series Venezuela on the Move, Adriana Sibori and Jesus Romero tells us their story. Let's see.
It's always hot in Venezuela, and these cattle are especially adapted to hot climates. Some are pure breed, known as Gyr, and others are crossbreeds of 2 types of cattle, called Girolando. Carlos came to this multifunctional farm years ago. He used to live between buildings and the heavy traffic of the capital city.
I didn't know what agriculture was. I was in the suburbs doing masonry work and other things. I met some friends and they invited me to rescue this land. We started planting corn, sweet potatoes, and then little by little we learned about cattle raising because we didn't know anything about that. First we had a cow, then 2, and so on.
Currently, there are 120 animals, 25 of which are exclusively for milking. From them, they obtain a very good quantity of milk. This type of work makes them love their land unconditionally.
I have met friends who have traveled to Colombia, Peru, Chile, and I have family outside of Venezuela. But I do not change my Venezuela for any other country. Venezuela is Venezuela, and Venezuela has a future.
If it's about the future, Frank finds it here. To manage production, they hire more staff according to every season's requirements.
Every worker has a salary every day. Being unemployed now is a terrible sin.
This cooperative has been created and run by its members who, with the help of their families, have managed to grow crops, including feed for the cattle, while tractors continue at full speed.
When we came in here, it was bare. And you are already seeing more or less what we had done in 16 years. Whatever is left, we use it for investment.
The investments are for a genetic improvement project for small and medium-sized producers. Almost 2 decades ago, this project started with state financing.
We are the same, with oil prices at 100 and with oil prices at zero. At zero, meaning no foreign currencies. Today in 2023, in spite of the crisis, the blockade, in spite of so many circumstances that have been affecting us here in the country, we are already 100% self-sufficient.
Very proud of the work. They tell us that everything produced here contributes to national food security and is also for self-consumption. The fields where Las Tres R's cooperative is located are part of one of the Venezuelan states that was founded by Ezequiel Zamora in 1859, an independentist that vindicated countrymen's rights.
Jesús Romero era nacido en TeleSUR, Yaracuy, Venezuela.
And now let's take a short break. But remember, you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Canada reported the finding of at least 93 possible unidentified children's graves in a boarding school for Indigenous peoples. Authorities of Saskatchewan, a native town of Canada, confirmed on Tuesday about 79 infantile burial mounds and 14 possible graves of newborns in the surroundings of another Catholic boarding school. In this sense, the local authorities affirmed that after the first investigations, it is expected to find more tombs. Additionally, authorities asked for privacy after their initial revelation and expressed that more details will be revealed in a forthcoming press conference. In France, some 2,000 people have been prosecuted on charges of involvement in protests in late June near Paris. French Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti claims in a special interview on Tuesday that out of those prosecuted, over 1,000 were found guilty and another 1,789 were sentenced to prison. All of them were arrested in the context of the protests over the murder of Nahel, a 17-year-old French teenager, by a policeman. According to the minister, he called for a rapid, firm, and systematic response from the magistrates, not justice, because it was a matter of restoring law and order. In other topics, Russian authorities warned that they will respond to the Ukrainian drone attacks against 7 regions of the country. Specialists indicated that in the last 18 months, there have been at least 319 registered attacks from Kiev with more than 600 drones. It was also reported that the Crimean Peninsula was the most affected by the aggression, registering at least 254 attacks. Media sources reported that the Russian airspace forces responded with an attack against Kiev's main directorate of intelligence headquarters using a Kh-50 cruise missile. And Russia vetoed on Wednesday a United Nations proposal to extend sanctions on military-run Mali. The sanctions, set up in 2017, bans travels and freezes assets of anyone seen to threaten peace in the fragile country. The junta has urged the end of the sanctions after earlier forcing an end to a decade-long UN peacekeeping mission. 13 of the Security Council's 15 members backed the draft resolution led by Mali's former colonial power France and the United Arab Emirates, which would have prolonged the sanctions by one more year. Russia had accepted a continuation of the sanctions, although with the understanding it will not back further extensions, but oppose maintaining a panel that monitors the sanctions. Western powers accuse Russia of retaliating after a report by the panel spoke critically about actions that Malian forces and their foreign security partners.
Russia voted against the draft resolution on extending the Malian sanction regime. Unfortunately, despite the fact that we repeatedly urged a constructive approach and a sensible compromise, the text did not in any way take into consideration the concerns of the Malian side or the Russian Federation's position.
TeleSUR English launches its own videos on demand site for you to go and revisit our interviews, top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Just go to the top left corner in our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. And now we will have a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In South Africa, more than 70 people died after a fire in a building in downtown Johannesburg. The spokesperson for the city's emergency management services, Robert Mulauduzi, reported that the death toll from the fire rose from 63 to 73, but warned that this figure could increase. The fire broke out in the Marshalltown district at about 1:30 local time on Thursday, and so far authorities do not know the cause. The search and recovery operation for the victims is still continuing. The injured were taken to the hospital, and among them some suffered minor injuries and others inhaled smoke. And the former Secretary General of South Africa's ruling African National Congress launched a new left-wing party, the African Congress for the Transformation, ahead of general elections next year. Ace Magashule, a close ally of former President Jacob Zuma, was kicked out of the ANC this year over corruption allegations, but remains popular with parts of the left-leaning electorate. Analysts say the move could further dilute the support for the ANC. The ruling party has been in power since the advent of democracy in 1994. However, polls suggest it could see its vote drop below 50% in the 2024 elections. Magashule is facing charges of corruption, fraud, and money laundering related to the alleged embezzling of public funds earmarked for the removal of asbestos from government-built homes.
Here today, we are now going to announce a new ship for freedom. And I want to say to all South Africans, here is a ship of freedom. Come along and join us and all those who are weary and politically abused. We are here because we have suffered collective betrayal as a people and a nation at the hands of the people who claim to be our leaders. We have been sold out with few pieces of.
And on Wednesday, mutinous soldiers in Gabon announced that the head of the country's elite Republican Guard will lead the Central African country. The coup leaders said in an announcement on Gabon's state TV that General Brice Clotaire Oligui had been unanimously designated president of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions. Oligui is the cousin of the president Ali Bongo Ondimba, who had been declared the winner of the country's presidential election. In a video apparently from detention in his residence, Bongo called on people to make noise to support him. However, the crowds who took to the streets of the capital celebrated the coup against a dynasty accused of getting rich on the country's resource wealth, while many of its citizens struggle. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.